Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Happy to have you guys join us again. I hope you're staying warm wherever you're tuning in from across the country. I know I'm cold. I'm calling in from Colorado. Listen, AP poll, you guys know the drill. AP Top 25 poll just dropped a couple of minutes ago. A lot of big movement now at the top four, top five. UConn sits at number one. You got Texas now, who moved up to the number two spot. South Carolina dropped down to three, and UCLA at four. Before we dive in, Feast Week is done. I hope everybody had a great time following the action. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. Aria, any takeaways from Feast Week and following the action? And also, how was your Thanksgiving?
I'm still trying to digest all the food that I ate, and I'm still trying to digest all the games that were going on. I know you always talk about it. It's a crazy week. You got to download like eight different apps and different TV providers just to watch a single game. But I always like this week because not only is it fast-paced, high octane, but also we often get to see some early season matchups that maybe some teams like to avoid till later in the year. Obviously, we saw that with the number two and number three current seed. Number four got in on that too. So it was an exciting time to see top tier talent taking on each other.
Well, and we are now entering into like that weird time that's like right at a week and a half. Some are already into conference play, final tune-ups before the break and finals. And now you've got the SEC ACC Challenge this week. So we've got some great matchups coming up as well. But okay, you guys know the drill. Let's jump right in. Number one, no major surprise here. UConn continues to sit in that first place spot, receiving 22 first place votes, less than they got last week, which is interesting. UConn 7-0 on the season. As we said, getting into conference play with some of these teams, they beat Xavier big time, 104 to 39. That was their lone game of the week. Sarah Strong had 14 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds. Obviously, an opportunity to probably take a little bit of a break in that game. I mean, UConn was just dominant. They hit 18 threes, shot 50% from the three-point line. As I said before, they're 7-0 in the season, so I don't think you can sit here and really knock them out of that number one spot. I think that you and I talking before the show, there's probably two teams right now, at least in my opinion, really deserving of that first place spot. But I mean, for me, UConn is the clear number one. They're going to play South Florida this week, which is a really good matchup. South Florida picked to win their conference, and then DePaul. All right, coming in number two, Texas up from the four spot, slid up to number two. And here's why. As we all know, I'm sure everybody was locked in as much as possible over the week, especially on Thanksgiving. Texas actually got 10 first place votes, which I think that's actually pretty telling about how much the voters respect this team.
hmm
Um, they were up by as much as 23 versus UCLA, but ended up pulling out the win, 76 to 65. Rory Harmon was huge, especially down the stretch. She finished with 26 points, 5 assists. A bit of an off night for Booker in that game, and then they turned around in that huge win over South Carolina on Thanksgiving night, 166-64 after a big fourth quarter. We all saw the Rory Harmon game winner. I mean, listen, this is why they're in the spot right now. Then they followed up and beat Penn 81 to 63. Booker had 17 and 10. She just continues to be one of the most versatile and dominant players in all of college basketball. I'm gonna be honest, Texas is a scary team. They've got all the tools. They've got the skill, they got the physicality, and they got a veteran leader in Rory Harmon who can, really dictate the game down the stretch. Like I said before, they're 8-0. They're going to play North Carolina on Thursday. That's a big matchup, and then Prairie View later on this week. Aria, what are your thoughts on Texas, especially Texas being moving up to that number two spot?
Look, we can look at that from a historical perspective and exciting of what we've seen just about, any team can beat any team. That's always an exciting time, especially early in the season. Honestly, the thing that I'm more curious to pick your brain about is those 10 first place votes for Texas. I completely understand where they're coming from in a sense, but also I kind of always fall back onto the if you're the top dog and you're taking care of business and you're taking care of business in a convincing manner, how do I vote against you? Now, Texas, obviously, right, taking on some good competition in that tournament, takes on South Carolina and downs them. So I completely get it, but 10, is that kind of a lot considering how many votes South Carolina had for first place last week?
I think it's more of recency bias of potentially just the week. You got UConn playing Xavier, and winning by 70, and it's not really that premiere of a game.
Hmm.
They're getting into that Big East action with, that's why they have to schedule the non-conference so strongly at times. So I'm not saying I disagree with the 10. I think that Texas had a dominant week. And then there are two teams right now in early on, it's December 1st, who I think are the top two teams in the country. I do agree with the voters on that one. Um, okay, sliding down a spot, South Carolina to number three had received a few first place votes prior to this week. Did not this week. 7-1 on the season. They beat Duke convincingly. Okot had 23, 13, and four steals. And then they lost to Texas. The Players Era Championship in Las Vegas. Vegas was the place to be. In my opinion, they had some of the best matchups this week. Um, I just think Texas really jumped out on them. Big fourth quarter for the Longhorns. They beat them on the glass. I mean, those all of those types of stats that come down to an end of the game kind of wire are the difference maker. I'll be interested to see how South Carolina responds now moving forward. They're going to play Louisville on Thursday and NC Central on Sunday. So I think that Louisville game, that's a ranked matchup. We all know South Carolina has an opportunity to go win it all this year. That's a Final Four team for sure. How does this team respond after taking an early season loss? Okay,
Maybe
number
big.
four, number four, UCLA, 8-1 on the season. They're down one spot, as we've talked about it nauseum at this point. We talked about Texas. They cut it to four late in the game, but they just couldn't finish the comeback. I would say Kiki Rice is playing really well right now. I think she's been really steady and consistent, continues to, make an argument for the top of the draft boards. And a lot of people have like four or five players on UCLA in their mock drafts early on. But like we said, UCLA lost that game 76-65. They bounced back and beat Duke big 89-59 in Las Vegas at that Players Era. Charlize Ledger-Walker had 20 and 6. It's nice to see her come along and add some depth to the Bruins. Then they beat Tennessee 99-77. Dominated the second half. Gabriela Jaquez, 29. UCLA shot 59% from the three-point line, made 10 of them. So that was a jam-packed week for those top teams outside of UConn and really just beating up on one another. As I said before,
Yeah.
UCLA now 8-1 on the season. They're going to play Oregon on Sunday. I actually think that Oregon team is pretty tough, so you better believe I'm locked into that one. I'll let you take number five.
Before we get to number five, we got a few in the chat that I think is a perfect segue to number five, but also to talk about the top four real quick. Chicago Cheetah says Texas Longhorns might be the team to beat, but we'll see. And I think Rachel's completely with you on that one. I agree. Talking about this early on, even before we got on air, it feels like I just can't wait for that UConn Texas matchup. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun. We have Dreadburner, LSU scoring 100 plus every game. They should be top two and not two, which is the perfect segue for what we're talking about right now, which is
I mean,
five LSU.
yeah, and I mean, before you dive into what they did this week, just to talk about LSU, the net rankings, the first one of the season came out earlier today. And I would say that they agree with you. According to the net rankings, which is what the NCAA and the committee use for the tournament, when we get deeper into the season, they've got LSU coming in ranked number one in the net rankings, which is really interesting. They've got 7 quad 4 wins, one quad 3 win. It's very interesting. I'm not going to make this all about a net dissertation, but obviously there are some legs to that. Okay, all right, let us know what LSU did this week.
So 113 to 53, they beat Marist. LSU had 7 players in double figures. Johnson had 19, then beat Washington State 112-35 at the Paradise Jam. They're now 8-0 on the season. They'll play Duke on Thursday, in New Orleans on Sunday. The interesting thing, as brought up by our lovely viewers, LSU has scored 100 points in every single game so far, with their lowest scoring 2 games, 101 and 108. They are putting on a offensive show. Obviously, the competition is not necessarily the standard that the other top 5 teams are playing against currently. So we will see. Duke will be a nice little test. And then you get later in on the season, January 1, they take on Kansas. It will be a very interesting after that. They have some more actual intense games happening.
I mean, there's no doubt LSU's talented, but it's always one of those the way they schedule their non-conference. You're kind of sitting there waiting to kind of see. We just haven't seen them battle tested like the rest have. But we know the SEC will do just that. Coming in at number six, Michigan 6-1 on the season. No movement from last week. They beat Detroit Mercy big, 102-52. They're going to play Central Michigan on Wednesday and Purdue on Sunday. I expect this to be a 2-0 week for the Wolverines. Talking about the net, they came in at number five on the net. So clearly the Wolverines are strong across the board. I think they've proven themselves so far throughout the course of the season. Number seven is Maryland. No movement from last week. They're 9-0 on the season. They beat Kentucky. That was a convincing win. I was really looking forward to that matchup. They beat Kentucky 74-66 in Puerto Rico. Mac had 15-6. This was a big game for Garzon.
Big
Kind
time.
of in a little bit of a shooting slump. She kind of got out of that one, shot 50% from the three-point line. Then they turned around and beat Hofstra big, as they should, 95-38, to really wrap up their trip to Puerto Rico. Now 9-0 on the season. They're going to play Mount St. Mary's in Minnesota on Sunday. So, Maryland sitting strong, taking care of business, proving why they are a top 10 team. Coming in at eight, no movement with these next few. TCU at eight. They beat Richmond 68-52. Marta Suarez she's really good, you guys. She's really good. And anybody who follows me on social media, you've been hearing me talk about it all week, but she's really good, had 24 points. She hit 6 threes in that game. Olivia Miles was on triple double watch with 19 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Then they beat UAB 82-61, now 8-0 on the season. They're going to play Incarnate Word in UTEP this week. So it's interesting, some of the matchups that are true tests, and I think we've seen TCU tested a little bit, but I'm really looking forward to kind of some later matchups to really see what this team is made of as it gets deeper into Big 12 play. All right, who we got at nine?
Coming at nine, Oklahoma beat Coppin State 100-46. Williams had 21 and 9. All starters finished with double figures, then beat Florida State 109-91. The offensive output this season is just wild. To win the Coconut Hoops Championship, the names of these things always tongue twist me up. The Sooners are now 7-1 on the season and will play my buddies NC State on Wednesday and Maryland Eastern Shore on Sunday. But before we move on, getting out of the top 10, just a few more in the chat. The LSU disrespect is crazy. Why do we have a team with an L above them? We kind of broke that down. Like, look, it's the age-old question. Is it better to lose to a number one team or a number two team, or is it better to beat a team that's not even ranked? That's kind of the question that we got going at us today. And then another question that I was going to save for later, but I figure throw it out. Why not? We're Midwest folks over here. Why isn't Illinois women ranked yet? Rachel, you want to break it down? I mean, they're not even getting votes, but talk to me.
I mean, I love my Illinois team. Just let them fly under the radar, real steadily. Shauna Green does a phenomenal job at Illinois, and I think they're 6-1 on the season. Let's take a look. I mean, they beat SEMO, Illinois State, lost to Oregon State. That's not a good loss. That's probably the reason right there. Went on to beat Murray State and Florida State. So they're taking care of business, but you lose a game like that at Oregon State. I think if had they not lost that one, they would be receiving votes. And I do want to make a point back to the LSU thing. I know the disrespect is there, but again, you got to remember the strength of schedule. They've only played quad 4 and quad 3 games so far. They have no games that are quad 2 or quad 1. So the voters are looking at the strength of schedule and the fact that they haven't beaten anyone. This is a big week, an opportunity to play Duke. I know Duke is struggling, but it's still Duke. Where are we at now? Number 10.
Number 10.
Iowa State. Whew, okay, my Cyclones. We got to talk about Audie Crooks, everybody. Okay?
Whew.
Audie Crooks. First off, they beat Marquette. This was a test. We had not seen Iowa State really play that tough of a schedule yet. That Marquette matchup, I thought, had the opportunity to be really intriguing. They took care of business, won 84-73. They advanced to 8-0 on the season. Addie Brown had 18 points and 6 assists. Crooks, a little bit of foul trouble in that game, but she still finished with 18 points. And then they go on and play an Indiana team, which, anybody who follows women's basketball knows, yeah, they might be a little down. They might be having a lot of new players, but, Terry Moore does a great job at Indiana. So beat him convincingly 106-95. Audie Crooks, you guys finished with 47 points. 47, that's a career high. I know everybody has seen it all over social media. So this to me was a convincing week for the Cyclones, for me at least, to be able to see them to be tested. I would not have been surprised if they slid up a spot, but I'm also not surprised to see them just sitting there steady at number 10. They're going to play Northern Illinois on Sunday for their lone game of the week. All right, who we got at 11?
Well, at 11, doing a little switch, moving up one spot, North Carolina beat South Dakota State big, a convincing win over a good mid-major program, 83-48 in the Cancun Challenge. Navarre had a triple-double with 13, 12, and 10. That is a convincing stat line. Then beat Kansas State 85-73 to advance 7-1 on the season. Then they beat Columbia 80-63 on Saturday to finish the week 8-1. The Tar Heels will play Texas on Thursday and Boston on Sunday. That Texas game is definitely something that I am paying attention to. Also, though, something that I find interesting between 11th place and 12th place seeding, whatever you want to call it, Iowa drops out. Now, obviously, North Carolina beats South Dakota State, a team that has been getting some votes in this early season. But Iowa coming in at 12 this week, drops one spot. They beat Western Illinois 86-69, then beat Fairfield, who's also getting some votes. So I feel like that kind of should offset a little bit. I expected these teams to stay in a similar set. I'm wrong. They beat Fairfield 72-86, had four players in double figures and shot 48% from three. I was 8-0 on the season. They play Rutgers on the 6th for their lone game of the week, and just super, super impressive what we have seen from this Iowa basketball team this season. They just continue to impress me. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure going into the season I would have expected Iowa to be toeing the line of a top 10 team right now. We'll see what happens when we get into Big Ten play. Okay, number 13, Ole Miss, sitting the same as last week. They dominated Longwood 102-50, a great offensive performance in that game. Cody McMahon, whew, she is made for TV, had 29 and 9 in 25 minutes. Then they beat Wisconsin big time, 65-56. Then they beat George Mason big on Saturday. They're 7-0 on the season. Big week right now, having an opportunity to play Notre Dame on Thursday. And then a Kansas State team who was in the Sweet 16 last year, but reloading and very much trying to figure it out. But, to me, those are two good tests because Kansas State has a lot of weapons. And man, if they can start clicking, they can start really rolling and winning some games. It's just too early for them right now. So I think this Ole Miss team, I don't think we're talking about them enough, in my opinion. And I think this week, with two quality Power Four opponents, that'll be a really important week looking forward. Number 14, Baylor is actually up a spot. They beat Louisiana Tech 75-46. Talia Scott continues to be one of the most prolific scorers in all of the country. She had 21. Then they turned around and beat Grambling 76-35. Dariana Littlepage Buggs starting to get back into her normal rhythm right now. It can't just be the Talia Scott show. They've got to have depth, offensive weaponry on that Baylor team. She had 16 rebounds and 10 points. Scott, 17, went perfect from the line. Baylor's now 7-1, and they're going to play Southeast Louisiana and UTSA this week. UTSA, a lot of respect for that program. That's a really strong mid-major. Another team that's kind of steadily right there under the radar, just slowly working their way up the board is Vanderbilt, coming in at 15, up 2 spots. They beat Oregon State 88-66 on Thanksgiving at Paradise Jam. Michaela Blake's dropped 35. Then a really good win over, in my opinion, a really solid BYU team that's better this year without their best player, but they gave them a good run for their money to win the Paradise Jam. They won that 84-71. Michaela Blake's doing what Michaela Blake's does, dropping the ball into the basket. 27 points and six assists. Vandy will face Virginia this week on Wednesday, 8-0 on the season. Who we got next?
USC up 2 spots. Let me find them. Where we at? Here we go. 18th last week, now up to 16th. They beat Tennessee Tech 85-44. Jazzy Davison had 20 and 16 rebound double-double. Then beat Pepperdine big 82-52 and will play St. Mary this week. Those have been the climbers, the good climbers. Then we got some drops off. Who we got coming in at 17?
Kentucky, and it's because of that loss to Maryland, in my opinion. They lost to Maryland in Puerto Rico, 74-66. Morgan had 22 and 8. Honestly, it was just, I think that was a game with just too many turnovers. Turning the ball over 20 times in a game like that, a good team's going to expose you. And I also think Maryland did a great job of getting to the free throw line in that game. Got to the free throw line 23 times compared to Kentucky's just 8. Then they bounced back. They beat Morgan State big 101-39. They're going to play Miami this week. This is a Miami team that is a good team. They had a rough week, couple really close games, but Miami's legit. That's going to be a really good test. That's on Wednesday on ESPN too. Just make note. That's a good one. Coming in at 18, Notre Dame actually up one spot. They beat Central Michigan 83-51, as they should. Hidalgo had 25 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds to advance to 5-1 on the season. They're going to play Ole Miss on Thursday, as we already talked about. That's a good matchup, and then Florida State on Sunday. So honestly, that's a tough week for Notre Dame. With I think is a program we've got a little bit of question marks right now. Not about Hannah Hidalgo necessarily, but kind of the depth and the weaponry past her, and what is the ceiling with this team. I think right now. I agree. And we really haven't seen that much. They haven't played that many games, to be honest. So big week ahead for the Irish. Why don't you take number 19, Tennessee, who I think this is the biggest movement of the voting poll. They dropped down 5 spots, Tennessee at 5-2.
A perfect segue into this was a comment in the chat that Tennessee is just not that good this season. And I'm gonna withhold because I don't want to be poster board material for the team, but they are definitely struggling and are not producing the way that they did last year. Obviously, as Rachel, you have opened my eyes to their style of play and how that can kind of come in waves. Well, they lost to UCLA 99-77. They kept it close in the first half, but just couldn't keep it up in the second. Barker had 25. Tennessee had 20 turnovers. Had me thinking about that Notre Dame game. 20 turnovers in comparison to UCLA's just 12. Lady Vols are 5-2 on the season. They play Stanford on Wednesday, and then they have an 11-day break, hopefully for some recharge and redirection for this team. But before we get into 20 and there's a few more comments in the chat. Luca says the top 6 is so competitive, and I completely agree. I wish we could have a little mini tournament for Thanksgiving of just them or for New Year's of just those teams. Nancy Law, I like this one. How can Michigan not move up ahead of UCLA when they only lost to the number 1 team by 3? South Carolina lost by 2 and stays at number 3. The real disrespect is Michigan.
Ooh.
I'm with that.
Okay.
I'm all about that. No one's talking about Michigan enough. They should be getting some more attention. Similar to Michigan, but a rival. Michigan State coming in at number 20. They beat Temple by 35, 85-50. Then they won 72-64 versus Clemson. They will play Wisconsin on Sunday for their lone game of the week. Rachel, who do we have at 21?
21, Washington. If you guys remember, they were sitting really pretty at that 25 line for the first couple of weeks, and they've continued to take care of business. Washington 7-0 on the season. They beat Southern 66-40. Avery Howell had 18 points in that game. Then they beat UC San Diego. So they took care of business this week. If you want to check them out, they're playing tonight against San Jose State. Interesting, yeah. I mean, they're taking care of business. Okay. So I think, this movement is not necessarily because of the quality wins, because those are games they should take care of. I think it's just more so the movement around them. Coming in at 22, Louisville is up 2 spots. They beat my alma mater, EIU, by, we'll just say a lot.
We don't need to do numbers for that game, don't worry.
Need to do numbers. Then the next day they beat ETSU, East Tennessee State, 88-50 on Sunday. Then they won 100 a lot to Bellarmine on Sunday. They're going to play South Carolina on Thursday and New Hampshire on Sunday. So that Louisville South Carolina game, listen, yes, South Carolina should take care of business, but historically, you cannot sleep on a Jeff Walz coach Louisville team. They're hungry, they're determined, and they like to be disruptors, and they like to be party crashers. Just a little throwback to anyone who remembers. What was that, to the 19 run? I can't remember what it was, but Louisville, always a team that can cause issues one way or another. Okay, coming into the poll, we really suspected this movement.
Let's go.
I thought NC State, the only team to drop out this week was NC State. NC State drops out. Ohio State is in. Ohio State had been receiving votes I thought it was going to happen last week, but a lot of it had to do with that win over West Virginia. They took care of business. 83-81, that was in the Bahamas. And then they turned around and they beat Niagara 130-32. Just a quick recap on the Buckeyes. They got wins over Belmont, Kent State. They lost to UConn by, I want to say it was about 32 in that game. So
100
some
to 68.
yeah, so some mid-major competition, but this is a team that I mean, their only loss comes to the number one team in the country, and I think that West Virginia win is a quality win. West Virginia continues to stay in the poll. We'll get to that here in a second. But I like this Buckeye team. I think Jelani Cambridge is tough. I know you're a fan of her.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, leading the team in points per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage. She was somebody who really impressed me last year. It's been really fun to watch her game grow and kind of with the change in their roster from last year to this year, kind of see her take on that bigger role and more of a leadership position on this team is really fun.
And just to round us out here, I'll take it because they're Big 12 teams. Oklahoma State staying the same, sitting at 24. They had a good week over in the Cayman Islands. They beat up on Texas A&M at Corpus Christi in that one, 98-45. Haley Timmer had 25 points. Then they beat Charlotte. This is when they went to the Cayman Islands, 74-65. And then in a really good game, a sneaky good game yesterday. I don't know if anybody had a chance to check that one out, but they beat Miami, a very good matchup. Amari Whiting, Jaden Wooten combined for 49 to beat Miami. I think it was about a 3-point game down the stretch, 87-84 to win the Cayman Island Classic. I like Oklahoma State. We've talked about the points. We've talked about how efficient they've been from the three-point line. I think it's no longer, okay, you're looking at, say, a player like Staley Hurd, who is a Big 12 first team all selection. You've got so many other weapons on this team. They lack a little bit of depth in the paint. And that's maybe, if there was an Achilles heel for this team, but they came out hot and the competition wasn't that tough. Well, now we're starting to see this team be a little bit battle tested. Their only loss came to a really tough St. John's team in New York. Okay, then rounding out West Virginia, that loss to who are we talking about? Who'd they lose to?
Ohio
Ohio
State.
State. That loss to Ohio State didn't punish them. They only dropped down 4 spots. They're still in the top 25. I don't know. I'm always going to be a big believer in a Mark Kellogg coach team, their style of play, how disruptive. Just a quick recap: they beat McNeese 83-60. Two in the Bahamas. Gia Cook had 24 points. And then, as we talked about, lost to Ohio State, and that was giving the Buckeyes their first ranked win of the season. I think down the stretch, I mean, West Virginia had a chance. Sydney Shaw had a chance to tie it. She got fouled on the three. Then she missed the first. Like she could if she just hits all 3 free throws, we're going to overtime. She misses and end up losing by 2. West Virginia. I'm gonna be locked into this one tonight. A good matchup. Not a lot on tonight. It's a quiet. Everyone's traveling back from the Bahamas. It's a quiet night, but tonight you're going to see West Virginia and Villanova. So be sure to check out that one. I want to just
Can
kind
I
of
just say,
go
wait,
ahead.
before we get into this, I just got to say my piece real quick. I believe NC State is being punished for last week's losses and not what happened in this past week. Just going to say it. I mean, NC State, yes, I know you're about to get into other receiving votes. They lead that with 26 votes compared to Nebraska's 19. Fine, whatever. This past week, they beat Green Bay 79-67. Zoe Brooks, 21. Pierre had 12 and 21. Then they beat Southern Miss 110-56 in the Cancun Challenge. This week, they will face ranked Oklahoma in a big test. They obviously need to get that. I know we're not supposed to be talking about the 26th team in this, but I do feel like they took care of business. And it almost feels like maybe West Virginia got a little bit of a benefit of a very embarrassing loss 2 weeks ago by the Wolfpack.
I think the voters got it right. I think they got it right this week. I was a little confused after last week, but I'm on board with it this week. I agree. But hey, let's guess the good news is a week from now, they have an opportunity to go win this game against Oklahoma. They're in control of their destiny. Let's look at the others receiving votes. As we said, NC State 26, Nebraska 19, Richmond getting 7. Texas Tech still sitting there. They're the first 9-0 team on the season. You can catch me on call on their game on Wednesday. Then Princeton 6, Oregon with 6, Georgia 3, Stanford 2, Fairfield still receiving votes at 1, Alabama 1. Real quick before we sign off, let's just look at some of the big games. This is, like I said before, we're headed into kind of like the finals time. Some are taking a really light week, but we have the ACC SEC Challenge this week. Really looking forward to that NC State versus Oklahoma game
Hmm.
today. You got North Carolina versus Texas on Thursday. LSU and Duke. Does Duke finally get something going a little bit, or is LSU just going to run through them, which we're all kind of thinking is going to happen right now? That's Thursday on ESPN. Then you got Notre Dame and Ole Miss on Thursday on ESPN2. Real quick, just a couple other ones that I made note of that I think are important. I like Miami. I know no one's talking about Miami in terms of anything we're talking about today, but that's a good test for Kentucky on Wednesday. Then you got South Carolina and Louisville, which we've talked about as well. That's Thursday. Oregon and UCLA on Sunday. I like this Oregon team. That's a big test to see, okay, how's Kelly Graves' team looking this year? That's going to be on Sunday at FS1, and then Washington and USC Sunday on Big Ten Network. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope everybody has a phenomenal week. I know it's Monday. Hang in there. We're in it together. Thank you for all of our awesome producers at Bleacher Report for making this show possible. And we will see you guys next week, same time, same place.